Okay, I guess we're live, so we're going to get into our work. So nice to have you guys. I can see that I'm going to have to remove a couple of icons because I'm going to need to look through the windows too much, left and right, left and right. So allow me to just organize stuff in here so all the chats will be in front so I don't miss out on anything. And obviously, hello everybody, my name is Michael and I'm a teacher for VizAcademy, and this is going to be another live stream by courtesy of Chaos. So right now VizAcademy is part of Chaos Campus, and which means that we're all going to have a little bit of fun at the expense of Chaos. No, obviously Chaos is sponsoring us, so it's really great to have them, and I never expected that such an amazing company is going to reach out to us, but hey, here we are. So today's topic is going to be rather simple, but it's really something that I like because a lot of our students work with exteriors, and I can see that Monique has just joined in on our chat. We've got Nicholas, Mohammed, really nice to have you guys. Everybody who just joined in, please say hello so the chat will be more alive. Also, Monique, if that's not too much to ask, say hello also on our Chaos Campus, so that way more people will see it on Facebook. Regardless, let's see what's going on. So thank you, I'm really fine. How are you, Monique? I've seen your work recently, so congratulations. By the way, guys, just so you know, Monique is our former student, so I'm going to be a little bit biased towards her, as long as he's not going to be Matthew. So let's continue. Just a joke of ours. Let's see. Okay. Hi, Mike. You are so handsome. Wow, that is really nice to hear, especially that, well, I try my best, I guess. Hello to everybody in Brazil, hello to Pana, and hello to everybody from India too. So I guess it's time to get started, but before we really do, I would like to also let you know that today we're not going to be building scenes, we're going to be just going through some basics. So I'm going to guide you through my way of building leaves, and I hope that it's going to be something that you will appreciate because it's a nice simple way of doing stuff. And that's it. So the scenes that we're going to be using is, first of all, this is going to be the scene by our student Julia Szafrańska. As always, our students are amazing, and maybe if we have enough time, we're also going to be visiting a scene by Adriana Wnek. So again, as you can see, those are pre-selected scenes with a couple of leaves laying on the ground. Hi Archlife, nice to have you. By the way, guys, you might have noticed that we already posted our scene review for the next month. So this time we're going to have more time to prepare, and obviously right now it's obvious that we reached 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I want to have some of you guys to also be live there. By the way, guys, if you want to, you can also see us on Facebook chat. If you type in, if you go to Facebook and look for Chaos Campus and try to watch us there, this way the group is going to grow. And what is Chaos Campus? This is something that I would like to talk about a little bit. So first of all, Chaos Campus is a small online school that was created by none other but Chaos. And at some point, Theodore, a really amazing guy, reached out to Chaos that he would like to. He pitched an idea, keeping it realistic. So that way he formed his first show that's right now almost weekly, and he's getting really a lot of responses there, so congratulations. And the thing is that because the community grows, I want you guys to also consider joining it, because I'm active there. We're all big well, small but still very vibrant community where you can ask for advice, look for some tutorials, and obviously have a chat with other professionals. The community is very friendly, so why not join? But that's beside the point. And now we're going to be continuing our exploration. We also have another scene by Paulina Kushnierz, and this time you can again see leaves. Leaves are amazing, but do we add it in post or do we scatter them? We want to have them in our reflections, so we're going to be scattering those. Hello from Facebook, Della, thank you. I can see that some of you guys are here. We've got Michał, thank you very much for joining in. Well, I'm going to be talking to multiple chats because this really is amazing. I never imagined that I'm going to be streaming on two platforms at the same time. This is so bizarre for me. Okay, regardless, let's get started. So first scene is the Julia scene. Obviously, we're going to see a lot of amazing stuff in here, so let's explore a little bit. Whenever our students are working on their scenes, we're going to be asking them to build not one, not two, but multiple different scatters. Multiple scatters for grass, multiple scatters for other greenery, for trees, and possibly for other objects. And this is only a fraction of what we're going to be learning today, because well, the other objects are leaves, twigs, rocks, and all of that. But there are some ideas and rules that we can follow to make our scatters a little bit more lifelike and a little bit better. So examining the scene, you can see that it's rather simplistic, but there are some elements that are activated in our scatter that will help us greatly reduce the RAM usage. This is something that you always have to take into consideration, because at some point, even in such a small scene, you're going to run into tens or hundreds of billions of polygons, and I'm guessing that a lot of you, since you're joining us right now, are still learning. So you don't have big budgets to buy some kind of beefy machines that will rule the world. No, we are practicing or aiming at those of you that have 16 gigabytes of RAM, just normal equipment, because you know, we're getting started. We don't need to invest in everything we've got, or let's say skip our rent because we want to buy a computer. No, we want to work on normal basis. Later, you're going to be able to get a little bit beefier computer, but again, I don't think my computer is one of those that you would call the most advanced and biggest, because as you can see, I've got only 64 gigabytes of RAM. I used to have 128, but that was an overkill because I am proudly always optimizing my scenes, because in the end, it really pays off in the render time, and it's just smart. So I like being smart, and lazy, so that's what I do. And obviously, we're going to be abusing our CPU today, so I'm using Threadripper 2970WX, but that's beside the point, so let's continue. Always keep moving forward. VizAcademy Mike, love from India. Thank you very much, Ravi. What else can I say? We also love you guys. Also, we have a lot of students, surprisingly, a lot of students from India, which is something... Oh, what? Wait a second. Where is the sound coming from? Okay. I have no idea what's going on. Okay. Yeah, because I want to read the chat, my phone just gave me a little bit of a heart attack because it automatically just turned on the chat on my phone, and we were listening to me for a second. So, hello from Russia, very interested. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Alexei. Isabel, is that you? Hi, Mike, sending from Sweden. Hey, nice, thank you. But it's you, Isabel, right? The Isabel that... Wait a second, I need to read that name again. Where are you? Just recently we spoke to one another. Like, where are you? Okay, Isabel, please stop hiding. Where are you? Yeah, I'm not going to be looking for you, but I wanted to just show. Yeah, it's me, miss the course already. I miss you too. So let's continue because I kind of talk a lot but click not a lot. So yeah, English language, hard language, me talky. Let's continue. So what we're going to be focusing on today is adding leaves, because leaves are going to be really fantastic add-on to any of your scenes. So if we look at this scene, you can also see that it has a ton of those objects added. And if we start rendering, you're going to see also that with autumn and also summer vibe shots, you kind of want to have either late summer or very early autumn shot, because that's always going to be a bit of extra visuals at the bottom of your scene. So you're going to get that in autumn, but if we want our leaves to be falling, we're going to have to figure out some nicer ways of getting those elements in our scene. Could you just extend it to a year long? We do have our support still active, so it's a win-win scenario for us, Isabel. So greetings from Vietnam, thank you very much. It's so amazing. So as you can see, there's a ton of leaves, but if I'm going to select all of those scatters and start hiding them one by one, and for that we're going to try not crashing our 3ds Max and opening the chaos scatter lister. This is a very cool thing, but our students, well, didn't necessarily add a lot of visual cues or names to the scatters, but the blues are going to be the leaves. So we're just going to be selecting and disabling all of the leaves in our scene. So possibly we're going to be getting the result I'm looking forward to. So basically we're going to lose all of those details, and at that point our scene is going to be a bit empty. I mean, it's still nice because everything else is high quality, but it's just missing it. It's just not it. And I kind of want that thing to be part of your scenes. And recently we did that review, and a lot of exterior scenes kind of were too perfect. And that was one of the first, let's say, complaints that I've got from one of my employers when I was working for a fireplace company. They said that the fireplace that I created is flawless, but it's too perfect in a sense that their products are not as nice looking as the render suggests. So they didn't want to kind of do the overkill with the commercials. It's like when you go to McDonald's and you see the Big Mac, right? The photo is amazing, and what you get is, well, different. And they didn't want to do the McDonald's because they were afraid that people will hate their product for it. So I had to kind of add a little bit of scratches, a bit of damage, a bit of welding seams because those were too perfect. And for example, here we've got a very nice grass. Whenever we will be working with grass, I would like you to consider the following. First of all, make sure that there are going to be patches of bigger grass that will be the dominant one. Then you want to scatter a separate smaller patches that will pretty much go around that. So we're going to get something extra. Plus open spaces, but the open spaces are not supposed to be scatters, but the lack of scatter, and maybe some dried grass. But what's really going to be important is the texture you're using for your ground. Obviously we want this to be fully randomized and, well, looking good. So we're going to be trying our best to add a couple of leaves in here, because once we add the leaves and twigs, you're going to see how much better the grass looks like. With, well, this grass and this quality, it's only going to get better, more realistic, and you can tell that right now this is just +1. You can be, let's say, working on a basic level, but you want to go one step further because you want to get ahead of everybody, or just make yourself a bit of or give yourself a little bit of a treat by doing something extra for you. So your renders are too perfect for them to handle, Mike. No, definitely not at the moment. I don't render a lot recently, But right now I've got an exciting project that I'm hoping that we will be able to do a bit of a, let's say, live stream or at least a bit of a vlog on, because I'm working on a club, which is a club with a beach bar, and we need a lot of lasers, so this is going to be fun. Something similar to what I did for the Greece and Poznan and for Bulgaria. This time it's different, but it's still amazing. So let's add the leaves. So where do we start? First of all, we're going to be starting the basic way. Remember the hedges tutorial that I did for you guys? We can pretty much do the same thing here, but this time we're going to be working on a different note. So let's delete the elements that we don't need. You can see how my scatters typically look, and those are just very simple grass with some twigs, you know, weed, whatever you like. Just make sure that you work with bigger, smaller, and dried out grass, and it's best to just make sure that it's going to be all semi-random. So I need this scene. Oh my god. Janina, you don't need it. It's super simple. Look at that. It's just scatter and a flat plane. Surprise, surprise, it's all about just finding the right amount of quality in the materials you're using. So we're cooking something. So let's just start by creating the basics. So to get the basics, we need to resort to basics. So what I would recommend you to do is either go on the internet or just try to download something from your favorite websites. So you can see that we're going to be working with just a leaf photo and its outline. So the outline is called alpha map or opacity map. Remember guys, we're doing it we're taking it slow. We're going to be discussing every element so the beginners can actually get something out of this and not just jump into add this here, go. Okay, opacity maps are really simple, and it works as follows. What's black is considered zero effect, and on the scale of 0 to 255 in RGB, so the color gradient, we're going to be getting from absence to presence in the visibility. How do we use them and where do we use them? I'm going to elaborate on that. First of all, we're going to need some kind of object in our scene that can accept a texture. So for that, I'm going to be using a plane. Doesn't have to be something very weird or big. It's just about making sure that it's going to be pretty much like that, you know, the size of a leaf. So let's just go for it. 15 by 15 sounds about right. Now you might want to go for lower width. In some cases, depends on the texture you're going to be dealing with. So what type of texture is going to be the best for a leaf? Honestly, the best textures are square, not because it's going to have some kind of special properties, but it's just easier to position, it's easier to work with, because you don't have to guess the proportions. So if you have a chance to cut off the elements that you kind of don't need, don't do it, and make sure to add a little bit of extra space. That's just me and my preference. So the next thing we're going to be doing is adding a couple of more width and length segments. It doesn't have to be very dense. It's all about having options and well, chances to change something about the model. So let's just continue. Press M on your keyboard, which is going to call upon the slate material editor. If you haven't yet worked with slate material editor, this is your goal. Change from go to modes, change from compact to slate material, and make sure that you disable dockable, because in newest 3ds Max 2024 and up, this is the most annoying part of material editor, and I can just prove it to you. If we accept the dockability of it and move it in the wrong position, and for some reason right now this is the one moment in my life when it doesn't want to be annoying. Okay, we're going to just continue. So the material we're going to be calling upon is Corona physical material. And since we started our talk about textures with an opacity map, let's just add this physical material to the object and quickly check how the opacity map works. So we're going to go to Maps, Corona, and in here, Corona bitmap. It's very important to remember that right now, 3ds Max's bitmaps are fine and won't blow up your computer, but Corona and all chaos, let's say technology, is a little bit better than the default one. So I would definitely recommend you to, whenever you can, use Corona bitmap instead of regular bitmap. I can prove to you why it is better by crashing my 3ds Max, but I kind of don't want to waste your time. So let's continue. Okay, so what's going on our chat? I see that there's a lot of you guys. So, does the scatter affect the speed of movement in a scene? Yes, Dren, it does, but it's a two-edged sword. I mean, you can set your scatters the way you want them and pretty much turn on the optimization, so you're not going to be displaying all of the items, so it's not going to have as much effect on your scene. But if we're going to really be annoyed and we want to remodel something, I would strongly recommend you to go into your scene and disable all the scatters for the moment where you are remanipulating every element. Why? Because the scatter is going to be calculated for the mesh at each state. So if you just start moving some kind of elements, it is going to be, well, annoying, and this is going to be something that you absolutely have to keep in mind. I am not sure how the ads work on YouTube, but I can skip your ad right now. I don't know how it's done. Do I talk during the commercials? Are you... What's going on? Okay, I'm going to assume that the ad is, let's say, skippable, and we're going to continue. So disabling the scatters is the best thing you can do. Install ad block on your Chrome to remove ads. Well, this is not legal for me to say. I wouldn't recommend doing that because actually that's right now, I mean, YouTube illegal. But Monique, there are better ways, but right now YouTube is punishing for that the users. Your videos are going to be loading way slower if you do use this kind of technology. I kind of have YouTube Premium and I like it because it's working. So YouTube, hit me up. I can just get you more clients. Now let's continue. By the way, I've ordered my 100,000 subscriber thingy, and it's going to go somewhere around here, so we're going to be able to see it, and I'm going to do an unboxing like a big YouTuber. Okay, so regardless, now let's just make sure to say let's just add this material to our object. You can also use A as a shortcut to add your material to the selected object. So you can instantly see what the opacity does. So what it does, it allows us to see through the object. It's not really going to add the volume to our object, but it's definitely going... No worries, Monique, don't, it's okay. But thank you Isabel, thank you Monique. Quixel Leaf Atlas are the best. Yes, Rob, you are right, but there is one challenge that we would have to go through to use them. Payment. So we don't want to, at least not now. Remember, this is a starting point for some of you guys, and I don't want you to invest billions of dollars before you make your first steps. Okay, so we're here. We know how opacity map works. Perfect. Why do we add all of that geometry to our leaf? Now it finally will make sense, because since we see the structure, let's add either bend, 4x4, or noise modifiers, or all together, all of them. So FFD 4x4 is going to be probably the best here, but I think I'm going to opt for 3x3 for just a little bit of manipulation on my leaves. So just like that, I'm going to be making those leaves a little bit rounded, a little bit mushy, a little bit weird. So we're not going to be doing a lot, obviously, but I want those leaves to at least have some kind of lifelike properties. So we want them to be weird. And we're going to be copying those objects a couple of times. Those need to be copies and not necessarily some kind of instances, because otherwise we're going to run into some issues. And we can also change this from from FFD to a different modifier, for example noise, and in here we're just going to be adding a bit of noise on a different scale. It has one downside for me, because it will inevitably go low, let's say on the negative values, but in the end it looks nice and it adds a little bit of that extra craziness to your leaves. We can just continue making them, like making 5 of them, and that's really going to be the best thing we can do to make sure that the leaves are looking fantastic during our render time. And thanks to the fact that our textures are going to be sticking to those objects regardless of what we're doing, it's still going to look even better. And bend modifier would just, you know, bend those objects, so it's just going to give us very similar the result as FFD. So now we've got our beautiful leaves. One is not like the others, but rest is already quite crazy. So let's convert those to a little poly to just make sure that those are working, right? Next thing that we're going to be working with is the actual textures that I've shown you, because if I start rendering now, this is going to be more than boring. It's just a leaf. But what's cool about it is that once we bent it, you can see that there's a little bit of extra structure forming here, or a little bit of gradient. So the noise is not that bad of an idea if you want to see some extra detail. Obviously this is a bit much, so if you went too far, just scale it flat, but in the editable poly, so it's going to you're going to be avoiding adding resetting X-forms. Sorry about that, no worries. Hello from Czech Republic. Hi Jakub, nice to have you. I've been to Prague and it's a beautiful place, but you've got those creepy kids going atop of your TV tower. I don't know what's the deal with that, but I did enjoy my stay. So definitely a nice place to visit, beautiful architecture and really nice people. So thank you for joining. Okay, so we've got our leaves prepared, right? What is our next step? Well, you want to check if there are any bugs or problems with your leaves, and if there are, just fix your textures possibly. But right now I can tell with quite big degree of certainty that everything is fine. So I am allowed to delete that texture, and we're going to be going one level up. So let's grab our base color, drop the base. Now let's go for maps, go to Corona, and we're going to be working with Corona multi-map. For those of you that don't know what it does, Corona Multimap allows us to apply different colors to different IDs, different mesh elements, different instances. You've got plethora of options in here. What we will be using is either instance or mesh element. Both are fine, and I'm going to go for both. So that's what we're choosing. Hello from Indonesia. Hello to you too. Okay. Hey, we've got Anna in our chat. Hi. Hey, Anna, didn't we? I think we talked about one of your scenes in one of our streams, because I'm not sure if you weren't a part of VizAcademy at some point. Okay, let's continue. So, what does multimap do? It's obviously going to be adding all of those nice crazy colors. We deleted the opacity map, so we no longer have the cutout of a leaf. Special way of working with this map is really to go to batch textures, batch load textures. We're going to be copying this directory. So this is a life hack for you guys. Copy and paste it here, then press enter. I know that this is not a big life hack, but it took me a couple of years of working with Windows to figure it out. So I mean, I use it for tens of years now, but if you're new to Windows, that might come in handy. So now we're going to be selecting the textures that we want, and please make sure to select them in a certain order, because you want them to be loaded in a certain order. So obviously we're going to be loading all of them. Okay, perfect. Now we've got all of the textures one by one loaded. And what do we do next? Well, at this point, we're going to pretty much see the render once again. This is how it looks like, but if we render, we're going to see that each of those has a different, possibly a different leaf. If we increase the number of leaves, although we're not going to be changing anything about them, those are going to be loaded by a random chance, and we're going to see something extraordinary, randomization. And randomization is really something cool. Not yet, I was probably someone else, but I'm following your website since a long time. Thank you, Anna. That's really amazing. So if you have any questions, remember our chat is here, so I'll be glad to help you out. And we're going to be doing some render reviews, so you're welcome to also send us something in. So we're going to have a bit more chances to have a talk. Now, let's continue. So now, what is randomization and why it is important? Obviously, seeing patterns in anything we do, it pretty much makes it unrealistic. And you can see that here, without the randomization, the texture looks like a video game, a very old video game at it. So we're definitely going to try to add the randomization. Randomization is only visible during the render time. So that is why I had to turn on the render to show you that it exists. So let's go to the material editor and talk a little bit more about our textures. So what I'm going to do is just add another opacity. Now opacity maps corona, and we're going to be selecting another multi-map. So here we're going to do exactly the same thing, and in the same order we're going to be trying to select all of the leaves as I did the last time, but now the opacity maps. We've already know how the opacity maps work, and since we've followed the same order, possibly you want to name your textures a little bit better to group them and not select them, because if you're going to be working with more than 7, you're probably going to be annoyed by doing the clicks. Hello from Bangladesh, study in architecture. Hi TXT, nice to have you. Thank you very much for your explanation. I was having a hard time searching for these models. Really glad to know that, and this is definitely just to help you. Hi Gilbert, nice to have you. How are you? Okay, I see that the usual bunch is with me now, so now we only need Mikasa and we're good to go. So yeah, let's just continue. So we're going to be setting up exactly the same settings in here, in a sense that we're going to be going for instance and mesh element. So now the transition and randomization follows, so we're not going to be having some kind of problems with our textures overall. You can see that now, thanks to the fact that we've got those leaves and nice noise on it, it really looks realistic. Okay, so we're getting close to what we want. Now let's explore what additional options we have in our multi-map. So obviously we're going to have to look at hue randomization, saturation, and gamma randomization. Hello Salomon, nice to have you. So first of all, we're going to be just, while rendering, we're going to be seeing the changes in real time. So let's just zoom in here. That's about it. Perfect. Now, let's zoom in even further. So why do we need to work with randomization in gamma? Well, we don't, but you kind of want to, because gamma randomization is one of the most powerful parts of the randomization in multi-map. So this is not going to make your objects seem weird, and just adding subtle values is going to be really helpful in this case. So during our training, our students go through multiple videos on this topic. So today I'm just going to glance over the settings, but long story short, something around 10% or 5-10% on objects that need high degree of randomization is really fantastic. Saturation, this is the least used one because you don't want to oversaturate your objects or undersaturate them. That looks weird. So typically I avoid adding saturation randomization with my leaves, and then the hue randomization. This one is powerful. So we want to go slightly lower values because we want our colors to change from one to another, but look at that, this looks cool. Probably purple leaves, I know they exist, but this is not the time. So let's lower this value, and okay, sooner we get to something around 5%, we're going to see that this actually makes sense. But again, we're going to be going for lower values here and lower values there, so the subtle randomization happens. Okay, so this is going to be quite fantastic because no leaf is going to be exactly the same. But at this point, since we're using opacity map, and the opacity map is going to be the type of is and is not type of texture, sometimes you're going to see that your leaves, although seemingly just black and white, will have this kind of grayish area, right? And this is not big of a deal, right? And not necessarily the biggest thing ever, but since I told you that we're all about saving a little bit of RAM, we're going to be using clip option. What clip does, it pretty much just changes the gradients from white to, grayish gradients into either white or black and nothing in between. This saves a little bit of your RAM, and if you're going to do it for most of your trees or all of your trees, all of your grass, all of your leaves, and all of the stuff that uses the opacity, and you just want the is and is not option, so pretty much black and white textures, this is going to save you a bit of RAM, and your scene is going to render faster, work faster, and load faster, so for the rendering. So that's going to be very powerful. But now we need to move on and actually do something extra here. So let's move away our multi-map slightly, and we're going to be introducing 2 extra maps. I mean, we can do as many as we want, but for me, the best solution would be to add Corona Color Correct in here. So why do we do this? Well, because we're going to be adding some kind of map into our translucency. So translucency is another very important value in our material. So since we're talking about values, let's actually explore what values we're going to be setting up. Roughness can stay at 75 because it gives us a very nice reflection, very matte one. But if you're going to do a bit of a rainy weather, go for a lower roughness. So we're actually going to see some wetness on the leaves because those leaves are going to have better reflections, sharper reflections. So something about 50% roughness, perfecto, quite frankly, this is going to be the optimal value. IOR, depending on your scene, again, I want to kind of have a little bit of mushy scene, so I'm going to go for IOR 2. Because I don't want too much reflection, because that's ridiculous. I want a little bit of it. So 1.3, 1.2, this is going to be something I want to see in my scene, and that's why I'm selecting it. And since we've added the translucency, we're also going to need to click on Tin Shell. So we click on that, and we introduce physically incorrect but beautiful value into our leaves. At first, we're not going to see a lot of changes. So let's add something around 0.2, 0.3. It's all going to be varying depending on what you would prefer, but you can still see that the leaves got a little bit darker. So what's happening here is that the leaves that I'm dealing with are now allowing the light to pass through. So let's add 0 here. You can see that now they're darker, and if we add something around 0.3, it's going to allow the light to pass through. This is a natural phenomenon in the leaves. You probably been outside, touched grass, so you know what I'm talking about. So here we're going to now continue with our Corona Color Correct, and we're going to use this as our global Corona Color Correct. So we copy it twice, connect it here and here, and first of all the base color, and then the translucency color kicks in. Why this is important, why do we do it this way? I'm going to just quickly tell you. First of all, this is for the global setting. We don't want to work with each individual leaf to change their colors, but we want to also do some extra changes later on. So, and we don't want to revert those changes for the base color. So in here, we're going to be able, for example, to change all of the leaves to be a little bit more yellowy or a little bit more brown. So almost purple in this case. So this is going to be important because sometimes textures that you're going to download are either going to be too bright, too saturated, or a little bit, well, they're going to be weird. And you can fix that by changing some of the values. So in my case, I'm going to be going for a minus 0.1 saturation, slight movement in hue, but that's optional. And then we're going to work with gamma. But this gamma is only going to be set up for global values, right? So this gamma, not needing it here. But now this is the funny part, because here we're going to be going for higher gamma in our translucency, but not as high, 1.5, right? So that's it. Then we can follow up with some saturation or extra contrast, so that's going to be a stronger texture, but honestly, just saturation will do. And then we've got corona color correction. Here we're going to be again doing the gamma corrections for the front side. So we've got front and back side, or let's say the side that is directly interacting with sun, and the one that's not. Okay, so pretty much we can now have the variety of leaves infinitely perfect. Okay, so what do we do? Well, first let's start with introducing you to the simple basics of using scatter. So we're going to create another plane, which is going to be our playground. We've got our 5 individual leaves, and they will always rotate between the 7 textures that we chose for them, so that's fantastic. And now we're going to go to our creation panel, go all the way down to chaos scatter, and here we're going to select just that. You can also use one of the icons on the corona toolbar or chaos toolbar, but I honestly like to go into the menus because it kind of, I don't know, I just prefer that. There's no reason for it. So now we're going to be doing the basics of scattering. So distribute on targeted objects. So this is our distribution. Distribute on object. So this is an object that is going to take in all of those instances of our leaves. So now we're going to actually add the leaves. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you want to, you can also change the color of your leaves here, so you're going to see how many of which type we're going to see, which is very cool in some cases, because remember that sometimes you're going to have that one weird leaf that you may want to change the frequency for. So this is going to just allow you better control if you know which one is annoying or what color annoys you. But that's not really that important at the moment. We're just going to keep them all at one. And again, let's just see how does it look like. So thanks to the fact that we kind of nailed it with our settings, most of them look good. But if we zoom in a little bit closer, we're going to also see that the problem that I mentioned, that some of the leaves are going to go slightly deeper into the ground, will really pop up, and that's really a problem. So that is why we prefer to add the FFD over the noise, but it's not a rule, because we can still kind of save it. Why or how? Well, we're going to be going through our transformations. So transformations are as follows. We can add movement, rotation, and scale to our leaves. Scale and movement plus rotation, magic. By default, you're going to see that all of the leaves will have rotation set to 360. Kind of makes sense because instantly everything looks better. I kind of get annoyed by it because always I need to work around it for objects that I don't need rotation, and I don't like that extra click, but then again, it's just me. So now by adding a little bit of transformation in the Z value, we made all of the leaves slightly hover or above the ground. We want this to be logical and make sense. So to really make it make sense, first of all, let's look at this leaf. Well, it's weird. So let's scale it down so it's not as weird. So scaling it down, perfect. But the reason why those leaves were in the ground to begin with is the pivot. You can see that this pivot point is in the middle of the object, and that's not necessarily bad, but this is the reason why this object was a problem. So what we can do is select all of them, go to the chaos tools, and we're going to be going for object pivot placer. So we just select the mode bounding box none, and we select the minimum. So now if we apply this, all of those objects are going to have their pivots or gizmos moved to the bottom of the model. So now every model would be slightly above the ground. So that's a very powerful thing to add. So we're no longer going to be forced to add such a great value to make them hover. And obviously now we're going to be able to kind of calculate how much we need, because for example, your grass strands might be 2 centimeters tall. And if you're going to add some random pivots, you're going to be playing a guessing game. And now I can just go for a 0.5 centimeter. So that's still going to be slightly above the ground, and even 0 here, and none of them are below the ground. So that's really going to be cool. But I still want them to be at least 3 to 4 centimeters. Make sure to add a bit of rotation on other axis. So for example, minus 15 to 15 on z-axis, and suddenly our leaves are amazing. Do the same for the y-axis, for no reason really, because nobody is going to be able to notice the difference, but it's going to be an extra. And in the end, nature kind of gives us all shapes and sizes, so let's make sure that some of the leaves are going to be bigger and some of them are going to be smaller. So now we can kind of tell that this is looking fantastic. Well, we don't see any grass yet because we need to repopulate our scatter in a second, but that's going to be something that we're going to be talking about in, well, a second. Okay, so I think I need more of those leaves. So how do we get more? First of all, we need to go to scattering, see if we've got all settings done. And this is a glitch in Corona. For some reason, you've got spline scattering. If you open it, it just evaporates. So this is a small glitch. Don't worry about it. But then we've got surface scattering. Surface scattering is really what we're after. So this is the maximum item count that we can work with. And that's exactly what we are going for, because we're going to be adding our leaves on a larger terrain patch. We kind of want to use the per square option, but please be very careful. At this point, you want to, before you click per square, you want to have your render off, because by default, we're going to have 1,000 per square 10 centimeters. So that's going to be a bit RAM consuming. There's another, let's say, safe guard in Corona that's going to stop you from adding gajillion millions of leaves, but it's pretty much not what we wanted, right? So it's... yeah, it takes a while to render and move in this scene if we're going to do it that way. So please make sure to go for something around, let's say, 5, 10, depending on the size and the type of leaves you're going to be working with. I'm not saying that this is in any way wrong. I mean, it is, but at least you know what to avoid. So let's go for 10 leaves per 10 centimeters. That's going to be probably cool. Whoa, Chaos Scatter is so handy. So many options for repetitive random operations. Yes, exactly that. That's it. The Navis, nice that you joined in. Can you explain this work models in V-Ray with multi texture? You know, this is exactly the same. I mean, it's exactly the same. Okay, this is too many. That's too much. This is too many leaves at the moment. Let's go for 2 per square 10. Okay, kind of like it, but let's now go for 2 per 25 centimeters, and that's going to be really okay. Nada. 15. Yeah, that's pretty much in between. love it. Now, we still have more options because we kind of want to have more control over our scatters. We want to decide where they go and where we don't want them. Let's imagine that we've got a tree somewhere around here. My advice to you guys, whenever you will be working with, well, let's say oak, you want to add textures for oak. That seems like duh, but a lot of people will be adding absolutely leaves. The first leaf they find online is the only leaf they will be adding to their tree forever. So avoid it, because it's not a good look really to have inconsistent objects below your trees and other elements. So please be advised. So now we've got our tree. So what else can we do with it? I mean, it's not an oak tree, right? But this cherry is added here just to emphasize what I mean. No, I just didn't find the right tree for myself. So let's move it slightly here because it's overscaled on purpose to cast a nice shadow. So now we're going to be creating a circle around here, and we're going to be using this circle with one of the properties of the Corona scatter that we're definitely going to love now. My suggestion to some of you is to always copy your scatters from time to time, but disable them if you're not going to be using them. Because sometimes you can mess up some settings. It's easy to go back, but pretty much you don't want to. Maybe you're going to be switching between them. But since I know what I'm doing, I'm going to go all the way down to the areas. And in here, I'm going to select this circle. So now all of my leaves are going to be potentially below the tree. Okay, so now we've got it. We've done it, and I love the way it looks. Although, we need more, so we're going to go back to our scatter and possibly add a couple of more leaves in the scatter settings. Or we can also play with distribution, and that's going to be another thing that I'm going to be talking about in a second. Let's change this to 4 actually. So this time we're going to have more of our leaves. So the reason why I would be working with multiple scatters is to have a scatter below a tree, within a circle or some other weird shape, and obviously some leaves that are randomly positioned. So now, okay, the circle looks at least weird. It looks weird. So let's continue by selecting the area at the very bottom of our scatter. Again, during the rendering, it's going to go slower than usual, so don't mind me. And here, although we do have the circle selected, we're going to do some extra things to it. So first of all, we've got the, once we select the circle, we're going to have the near and far option. So first of all, if we go for the near option, holding left control, we're going to be able to just simply add a bit wider terrain to cover. Now we want to go for a lower value on near, so we're just going to zero it out, and you can see that now this is cool because now we've added slightly different density and slightly different size, so it really looks super organic below the tree, and that's going to make a huge distance in your a huge difference in your scene. If we change the density like that, you're going to see that, well, it just cuts off all of the objects, so you want to kind of keep it at 1. Scale is pretty much what value we're going to be working with on at the start, so this is going to be a nice way of just creating those patches where the leaves are pretty much going to be all around the place, and you can go really far with that. It's a large tree, right? So now it really looks like some leaves were falling off this tree, although this tree makes absolutely no sense in this particular scene. So the reason why we want to copy our scatters is, well, probably if I've added this circle and I need more leaves randomly assigned to my scene, I will be creating multiple scatters. So again, we're copying this one. We're going to rename this chaos scatter to leaves. And now we've got leaf scatter 02. So it's pretty much going to be the smart way of keeping control in our scene. So name your objects from time to time, especially scatters, because once you're going to get to tens of scatters, you're really going to regret not doing that. So let's remove the area, because we don't need it. We already added the amount in here, so we're going to go back to the count 2, and now we're going to have a nice situation where all of those elements are working together. We've got slightly higher density below the 3 and a slightly lower density outside of the circle that we've created. We can also exclude that circle from this second scatter, because that way we're not going to be overwhelming the area that we worked with to begin with. But this is going to be already quite good. And to prove it, we can just make this plane a bit bigger if 3ds Max allows me at some point. I guess we're going to find out next episode. Okay, thank you. Okay, now we can make this bigger and bigger, and this is going to be a bit more realistic situation where everything makes more sense now, right? Almost, because now everything is uniform and it looks like we're just creating some kind of stucco on the floor. So that's not what we would necessarily want. And this is when another option in our Corona scatter is really going to come in handy. Well, beside the areas that we can work with, and my sincere suggestion for you guys is to go for a freehand, draw something like this, okie dokie. And now we're going to be able to convert this object to a little spline, weld those elements together. So let's go for collapse at the bottom. So fuse weld, perfect. Now this has a lot of vertices, so you can also normalize spline. So this pretty much will reduce the number of knots we're getting, so segment length, and we're just going to optimize it so it's easier to control in the future. And you know, it's just optimizes your scene, convert to editable poly, done. So that's pretty much what I do, but you don't need to. So we can limit our second set of leaves to another area where we need it, because you don't need it where you don't. For example, under your house, you don't want to scatter elements, so you want to exclude them. But this is just one option. How about we actually use a map instead? So material editor again, and we're going to be using my absolutely favorite technique for this. We go for maps, go to general, and my students know that I absolutely use and abuse the noise all the time, because it's the most basic and simplest. That is why we can go all the way down to the distribution. Where is it? All the way up to the distribution, I guess. Surface scattering. Wait a second. Am I blind or something? Scattering. Perfect. We've got everything here. Okay, map. Okay, so this is the distribution map, sorry. Now we're going to be adding it in. This is going to be respecting what we've got in this area, and the noise is going to be telling our scatter where to appear and where to not appear. So again, opacity map, but different. So save alert. Nice, thank you. Let's save as. Thank you. That is actually helpful. So let's save this up. And now in V-Ray, the Corona multi-map is called multi-sub texture. It's what was you're asking. Hold on, it's fractions very similar. Rob, that's not exactly correct, because multi-texture is a plugin from CG Source, and that is totally different stuff. Right now, V-Ray should have a built-in different map, which also allows a very similar thing, which is not V-Ray material, it's maps, and it's in V-Ray. V-Ray multi-sub texture. So this, okay, you were right. Okay, Rob, I just didn't use V-Ray for a long time. I thought that they were a little bit more creative with the name. Anyway, we got also the chaos scatter maps that we already talked about during some other videos. Going back to the noise, now we're going to be going for low value. You can see what's going on with the scatter right now. Let's just add a bit more of it. Display options, limit, let's add one extra. So this is going to be really cool. We go for low and high value, so higher value, and now you can see that our leaves are gathering in spots where the noise is working. So if we go for fractal, it's going to be even better. So we can now add a bit of gradients of distribution, and in the end we're going to be able to control how many leaves we're going to be seeing in our scene. So that's fantastic. But we can also work with some scale. Perfecto. So now it looks like dunes on a wind. So that's something super duper good. And again, we're going to just add values from 1 to 2. We're going to make sure that we've got some contrast in the values, so it's going to make sense. And again, I've added a little bit too many of the leaves in our values, so I'm going to be lowering that back to the original. And now we're going to have empty patches just like we had with our grass. So with just those 2 scatters, we're going to be able to get everything back together. I think I'm going to, because of the save that I did, my 3ds Max lost connection with some of the textures, so I'm going to have to re-add them. Well, sloppy me, set path, and we're going to be looking for not those textures, but just textures from the resources. Go. Okay, so this is the value, we're adding it in, maps, done. Okay, so since we've got everything set up, let's just make sure to transition this to our already created grass patch, which was a little bit better than this one. So let's delete whatever we had here. Let's move this 3 back somewhere around here for the shadows, obviously. Let's give it a copy. So it's going to be nice and small. Perfect, so it now makes more sense. Let's put it on 0 or minus 5 or something like that. So it's actually going to be really on the ground. Perfecto, the line here. Okay, now we're almost there. We don't need this at the moment. And now we're just going to go for our scatter. You're going to notice that now distribute on target object is deleted. So we remove it here. We've re-add our object. Right now this object is grayed out. Why? Because I was preparing this scene earlier and I froze it. So unfreeze this object. Let's add the scatter. Let's add the scatter number 2. Done. You might want to also play a little bit with the scale, but long story short, if we're going to now look at the grass and all the other objects, just alone the texture and the leaves look fantastic. But now we're going to do the extra click where we open the chaos scatter lister, we re-enable everything back in, and now this looks absolutely phenomenal. And this was a technique that our students were taught during our course. This is something that you all can explore, and pretty much although we didn't create a separate video on adding leaves, we explained how to do it during the webinars. So I guess this is pretty much what I wanted to show you for today. How do you like this, guys? How do you like the setting? How does this look like? Does it resemble leaves? You can see that thanks to the fact that right now we've got some of them in the air, it really makes it look good, because now no leaves are, let's say, on zeroed out, and we can see that due to also having a little bit of that rotation, 50 to 30%, we've got that extra, let's say, feeling that those are being lifted up by the grass strands all over. Long time no see. Hello, Renaud, and nice to have you. Hey, how are you? That's one of my students again. Super cool to have you. Nice. I really love seeing you guys. So how have you been? Any new projects? Well, send a couple of projects on your on our group chat. That would be lovely. I would love to see what you were up to. So we can now just save this and pretty much allow ourselves to have a preset. But how do we do a preset? Well, I'm going to just select those two and hide unselected. So it's going to be easier for me. And just like that, I can just select this, deselect whatever ground I had previously added or the areas. So I would remove this. Okay, select this file, save selected, and we can call it grass leaf reset 001. Let 1 less 0. And now we're going to be able to re-import it in any scene in the future. Whenever we need good looking leaves, this is going to be sufficient to cover any scene, just like Julia did. Julia went all out on leaves. You can see that we've got 5 different scatters related to leaves. She's really good. So that is why we're working with her scene. But there's one last thing that I think it's going to be a cool thing to show you, because obviously, why not? In her render, which was way better than what I'm showing you, in this render, you can also see something like this, right? Motion blur. How do we add this? How do we add motion blur to something so trivial as leaves? Well, we can animate the objects and add it. So we're going to be able to copy those planes, because those are planes after all, and actually add all of those values in. Look how much better the scene looks with all of those leaves scattered all over the place. Sure, I'll DM you some projects done at work. Great, I love that. So looking forward to this. Okay, so just this one thing. By the way, guys, if you have any questions, this is pretty much the last few minutes of our webinar. So if you want to, you can obviously shoot your questions and make sure to give me a couple of things to think about. And we're going to now move on to the step 2. Going back to the smaller scene, I'm going to just select this and try to add a bit of a copy here. So the trick is to add the animation, and right now, since those are copies, we can kind of cheat a little bit. If we, for example, select a leaf like that, we can move our pivot slightly away. So this way, if I rotate it, it's going to be rotated along this pivot. So for example, if I'm going to go for auto key, make it fall, and add rotation, the rotation is going to look weird. So let's make sure to move it slightly away. So let's, for a second, let's hide all of that. We don't need it at the moment. Auto key on frame 100. And let's just make sure that it falls actually. So let's put it on 0 in our movement and maybe do a bit of a circle. Okay, so now this is how the leaves this leaf is going to fall. And the trick to the leaf falling and giving us the nice motion blur that we're after is to create Corona camera, add a little bit of extra settings in here. So first we're going to go to depth of field and motion blur, turn on the motion blur by geometry, and as soon as we start rendering, you're going to see that now it blurs out. If you're going to work with shutter speed and lower that speed, you're really going to go into overdrive. So you kind of want to select the value that you feel comfortable with, but if we're going to also add animated leaves into our scatter and actually make the animation, let's say, make the animation happen in the scatter, you can really add a couple of leaves just jumping in and out. You can also add particles if you want to, but particles are a different lesson. So I guess that if we have no extra questions for today, you could use Tyflow and let the leaves fall. You're absolutely right, and yeah, that's a tricky one. I know that you're creating beautiful tutorials on the Tyflow. So obviously, if you want, guys, as art, 3D motion graphics is really amazing in it, and I've followed the channel for a couple of webinars, tutorials. So yeah, Tyflow is amazing, but the problem is that Tyflow is extremely expensive, and for ArcViz, it's just not going to be a good investment. And if I recall correctly, the biggest downside to Tyflow for me it's the price. I wouldn't be feeling that comfortable recommending it to anybody that's just starting. The free version will do all of that. Basically, yes, but wasn't it limited to like 2021 or 2020 3ds Max? Did they reopen the Valve? I mean, it's now easier to get it. There is no need for pro version, just 5% of the things people want to do. No, okay, so at the beginning it was, let's say, locked to certain version of 3ds Max, and I thought that it's limited that way. Just performance is different. Okay, I know that you cannot turn on the CUDA and stuff like this. So I guess we're going to make a couple of webinars on Tyflow and a couple of Corona things in the future. So buckle up. I'm going to create those in the future because I do like Tyflow. I did use it a couple of times, especially for curtain animation. It's actually better than the one in 3ds Max. So yeah, definitely cool thing. Thank you for pointing that out. So by the way, remember to check out his that YouTube channel. It's actually good. So this is it for today, guys. I guess we created everything we wanted. Everything looks nice. We know how to do motion blur, and particles can also be a good thing to explore. So thank you very much for your attention. Remember, this was a sponsored stream by Chaos, so big thanks to the Chaos and everybody involved in it. So again, this is it. I don't know how to say goodbye. So I'm just going to end here, wave my hand, and say goodbye. Till the next time.